Prepare to uncover the dark secrets of the rhyme of the ancient mariner. Follow the haunting flight of the albatross as we delve into the mariner's curse, poetic symbolism, and Coleridge's timeless message. Discover the mariner's haunting tale, a man cursed for his fateful decision to kill the albatross, setting off a chain of supernatural events and a lifetime of remorse. Get ready to dive deep into the heart of this timeless classic, only by Rare Tutorials.
It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of three by thy long grey beard and glittering eye. Now wherefore stoppest thou me? So it is an old sailor, and he stopped one of three guests. And so that guest is saying, by thy long grey beard and glittering eye. So I can see that you have a long grey beard because he's old, and glittering eye because obviously he's got some spark of life in him, or something mysterious, interesting to say. Now wherefore stoppest thou me? Why are you stopping me? The bridegroom's doors are opened wide, and I am next of kin. The guests are met, the feast is set. Mayst hear the merry din. The bridegroom's doors are opened wide. The bridegroom is the groom. The door is wide open. And I am next of kin. I am the next in the line of relatives. Kin means relatives. The guests are met, all the guests have come, and the feast is set. The wedding feast is all ready. Mayest hear, you may hear the merry din. Din is noise, merry means happy. So the happy noise of a wedding hall. And obviously we have alliteration over here. Mayest hear the merry din. He holds him, again alliteration, with his skinny hand. There was a ship, quoth he. Hold off, unhand me, grey beard loon, estoons. His hand dropped he. So he held the guest's hand, the person he was talking to, with his skinny hand. His hand was all shriveled up, skinny, because he was old, and old people's hands are like that. There was a ship. He started his story. There was a ship. Quoth. Quoth means said. Said he. Hold off. Unhand me. Let me go. Grey beard loon. You lunatic with the grey beard. Eftsoons. His hand dropped he. Immediately, the sailor dropped his hand. He holds him with his glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still and listens like a 3 years child. The mariner hath his will. So lots of alliterations here. He holds him with his alliteration. Stood still, alliteration. Hath his will, alliteration. Lots of alliteration. He holds him with his glittering eye. So he didn't need to actually hold him with his hand. Even when he let go of the hand, the guest can't move because the guest is focused. The glittering eye of the sailor is very magnetic. The wedding guest stood still. He couldn't move. And he listened like a 3 years child, just like a 3-year-old child would sit absolutely still and listen to a story that you tell him. The mariner hath his will, the sailor, the ancient sailor, the old sailor. It seems like the willpower of the guest was in the power of the sailor. So the guest couldn't do what he wanted to do. He was basically going by what the sailor wanted to do. The wedding guest sat on a stone, he cannot choose but hear. And thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. The wedding guest, he sat on a stone by the roadside. That is again alliteration. He cannot choose but hear. Like I said, the ancient mariner had the will of the guest. So he had to hear him out. And thus spake, which is spoke, on that ancient man. And the ancient man continued his story. This bright-eyed, the one with the glittering eye, this bright-eyed sailor, mariner. The ship was cheered, the harbour cleared, merrily did we drop, below the curb, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. So he says that he had started by saying there was a ship, and he says that as the ship started sailing away, it was cheered. Soon it sailed past the harbor. So the harbor was cleared. Merrily did we drop. Now this drop is what? This drop is the dropping out of sight of the ship as it goes into the distance. Now we know that science tells us that the earth is round, and one of the ways of knowing that the earth is round is how much of something you can see. So normally if something is near to us, then we will be seeing the whole thing. But the further it goes away, because of the curvature of the earth, you won't be able to see the bottom. Then you won't be able to see from the bottom to the middle. Then you won't be able to see from the middle to a portion below, from the bottom to a portion below the top. And finally, you won't be able to see it at all because it would have gone out of vision. Now, he says, merrily did we drop. Everybody was in good spirits, merrily, happily. And did we drop is alliteration. Below the kirk. Kirk is the church. So we soon dropped below the church. Then we dropped below the hill. Then, because the hill is standing underneath the church is on top of the hill. So first you drop below the church, then you drop below the hill, and below the lighthouse top. You also drop below. The lighthouse is normally on plain ground along with the port. So at the same level. So you drop below the top of the lighthouse as well. Now, if you notice that in the last two lines, below the kirk, below the hill, below the lighthouse top, there are two things that are happening here. One is, in consecutive lines, they start with the same word. Actually, the phrase below the. So this is called anaphora, a particular kind of literary device. Not to mention, the entire phrase below the has been repeated 3 times over here in very quick succession. The sun came up upon the left. Out of the sea came he, and he shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. Now remember that the ship is making its way from somewhere in Europe towards the equator, and as such the ship is traveling south. When the ship is traveling south, when your direction is towards the south, then east is to your left. Normally east is to our right because we face north. But in this case, east is towards your left, which means that the sun will rise on your left and it will set on your right, which is opposite of what normally happens. So out of the sea came he. The sun came up upon the left. He came up out of the sea because as far as you can see, it's the sea. And he shone bright, and on the right, so the sun was right in the sky, and on the right, it went down into the sea. Now you have to see that the sun here has been personified because we say out of the sea came he. He means automatically sun is being personified. Higher and higher every day till over the mast at noon. The wedding guest here beat his breast, for he heard the loud bassoon. Now every day that they traveled southwards, the sun went higher and higher up in the sky. The reason for this is because the equator receives the direct rays of the sun. The poles, they receive the slanting rays of the sun. The closer you are to the poles, the more slanting the rays will be. So since Europe is in the north, what happens is you don't ever see the sun exactly on top, like 90 degrees above your head. You don't see that. You see that kind of sun only near the equator. So maybe from the tropics where we are. From here onwards to the equator, you see the sun right above your head. So since they were traveling south, every day they found that the sun was more and more above their head. Higher and higher every day till over the mast at noon. So at noon time, the sun one day was exactly over the mast, which means they have reached the equator. The wedding guest here beat his breast. Beat his breast is alliteration. So why is the wedding guest beating his breast? Because he is missing his chance. He can hear the bassoon playing, a musical instrument. What does it look like? Kind of like a flute. It's a wind instrument. So he could hear the bassoon playing, and he was like, I am missing out on all the fun. Weddings don't come often, so he doesn't want to miss the fun. So he's beating his breast. The bride hath paced into the hall, red as a rose is she. Nodding their heads before her goes the merry minstrelsy. The bride has now come into the hall. Okay? The big reveal. Everybody's waiting to see the bride, right? They have gathered there to see the bride, the new bride. And the bride has just come into the hall, and that is why the bassoon is playing. And she is as red as a rose. That is a simile. Red as a rose. And also alliteration. Nodding their heads before her goes. So in front of her go the merry minstrelsy, which is also alliteration. Minstrels are musicians, they're singers. And they are going before they're marching in front of the bride, and they're making music, and happy music, merry minstrelsy. And they are nodding their heads in tune. The wedding guest, he beat his breast, yet he cannot choose but hear. And thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. So no matter how much the wedding guest wanted to be at the wedding hall, where the wedding reception was taking place, his will was not his own. And the ancient mariner, the sailor, kept on speaking. And now the storm blast came, and he was tyrannous and strong. He struck with his overtaking wings and chased us south along. So around the equator is the Cape of Good Hope. That is the pointy south portion of Africa. And there, normally, all European ships used to face a lot of storms. A lot of ships were wrecked in that region. So as they crossed the equator around the Cape of Good Hope, the storm came like a blast. Now the storm has been personified because it describes the storm as tyrannous. Somebody who's like a tyrant, doesn't listen to others, has his own will, and strong. He struck with his overtaking wings. Now he is creating imagery where the storm has been, a metaphor has been used to liken the storm to a bird. A bird with very powerful wings that overtook the ship very easily. And as the storm came upon the ship, obviously the sails that are there will swell, and the ship will be pushed along southwards and chased us south along. With sloping masts and dipping prow, as who pursued with yell and blow, still treads the shadow of his foe, and forward bends his head. The ship drove fast, loud roared the blast, and southward, aye, we fled. So the ship, imagine the ship flat on the surface of the ocean, the mast will point upwards, 90 degrees. But if the ship is on a wave, then the ship itself will be slanting. If the ship is slanting, the mast will not point 90 degrees upwards. The mast also will slant. So with sloping masts. And dipping prow. Prow is the front portion of the ship, where in the Titanic those two were standing, DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. So that prow was dipping. Why? Because the ship was coming down a wave. So the prow is plunging inwards towards the waters. The prow was dipping, as who pursued with yell and blow, as somebody who is being pursued, and the pursuers are screaming and coming at them, about to hit them. So if you are pursued like that, you will be running away. Same way, the ship was as if it was running away from the storm in the southward direction. And this is also a simile, as who pursued with yell and blow. She treads the still treads the shadow of his foe. So someone who is being pursued runs away, but still treads the shadow of his foe, but still cannot get away from the shadow of the enemy. So as the enemy is chasing after this person, the enemy's shadow is falling on the person, and the person should be able to run away to save himself away from that shadow. But as long as the person is in the shadow, the person is still in danger. Still treads the shadow of his foe is alliteration. And forward bends his head. So in his desperation to get away, to run away, bends his head low to get more speed. The ship drove fast. Loud roared the blast. So the ship went at a breakneck speed, pushed by the wind. And the blast, that is the ocean and the wind and the wave, roared loud behind the ship. And southward we fled. We ran in the southward direction. And now there came both mist and snow, and it grew wondrous cold. And ice mast high came floating by, as green as emerald. And now there came both mist and snow, so hard as the ship been running away from the storm which hit them somewhere south of the equator, that the ship has made its way all the way to the South Pole, towards the Antarctic. And because they are at the Antarctic now, mist encircles them, and there is snow. And it became wondrous cold, cold that makes you wonder, how is it possible for something to be this cold? And ice that was mast high, ice that was so high that it was as high as the mast, came floating by. These are icebergs, as green as emerald, the light shining through them, through the frozen water of the iceberg, makes it look green. So as green as emerald is simile. Also in the lines, in the 51st, 52nd and 53rd line, and now there came, and it grew, and ice. So starting with the same word, that's anaphora, anaphora. And through the drifts, the snowy cliffs, it sent the dismal sheen. Nor shapes of men nor beasts we ken, the ice was all between. So, and through the drifts are what? Ice floating in the water. The snowy cliffs, water cliffs are floating steep sides of the icebergs. So, and through the drifts, the snowy cliffs, it sent a dismal sheen. So over there you cannot see things clearly because of the mist and because of the ice. The light is reflected and refracted, and only a certain percentage of the total amount of light reaches your eyes, and it looks glowing but not very clear. So there is a sheen. Nor shapes of men, so we couldn't see any men, nor beasts we can. We couldn't also see any animals, no men, no animals, nothing, as if the place was dead. All we could see was ice everywhere. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around. It cracked and growled and roared and howled like noises in a swamp. So first and foremost, in the first two lines, you have anaphora. Secondly, the phrase, the ice, has been repeated 3 times in quick succession, telling you how much ice was there all around them. And the ice, it cracked and growled. It made a sound that was like cracking. When certain portions of the ice breaks away and falls into the sea, cracked and growled, and roared and howled. The noise all around them was like roaring and howling as the wind blew between the icebergs, like noises in a swamp. Like when you are dizzy and you are about to faint, all the noises become garbled. So it's like noises in the swamp. At length it crossed an albatross. This is alliteration. Through the fog it came, as it had been a Christian soul. We hailed it in God's name. So after a while, and that is days and days and days, okay? After a while, an albatross came. And these are birds with giant wingspans that travel all over the earth, like north to south it travels. So it came an albatross. Through the fog it came, and the albatross looks somewhat like this. In fact, exactly like this. Its wingspan is so huge that it has to fold its wings twice. Albatross is probably the only bird that folds its wings twice. It cannot. If you see the body of the albatross and the wing of the albatross, if it puts its wing next to its side, then the wing will never fit. So it has to fold it twice. Through the fog it came. So all around them was fog and they couldn't see a thing. And when the albatross came near, it seemed that it had just materialized like magic. As it had been a Christian soul, we hailed it in God's name. They took it as a sign from God. Like so long they couldn't see human beings, they couldn't see animals. Everything looked dead. But now a live creature has come. It must be a Christian soul, a good soul. And so it was hailed in God's name. It ate the food it ne'er had eat, and round it flew. The ice did split with a thunder fit. The helmsman steered us through. So the albatross became somewhat of a pet. It came to the ship and the sailors fed it with the food that they had, the ration that they had. The albatross had never eaten such food, but it ate that. And round, when it was not eating, it was flying round and round the ship, always sticking close to the ship. Why? Because it knew that it would get food there. So it stuck close to the ship. While all around them, the icebergs were still there, and they would split sometimes, and that then the sound would be like that of thunder, and then it would fall into the sea. The helmsman, the person steering the ship, would find a way through the icebergs. And a good south wind sprung up behind, the albatross did follow. And every day for food or play came to the mariners' hollow. So suddenly they got a south wind. A south wind blows from the south towards the equator. This would help them to get out of the Antarctic area and go towards the equator. It's a good thing. So good south wind suddenly sprung up behind them after the albatross had appeared. The albatross did follow. So wherever the ship went, the albatross followed. And every day for food or play, so there's a bit of alliteration there, for food or play, so either the albatross would come to the ship because it was being offered food, or it would come to the ship just to play with the mariners. It came to the mariners' hollow. When the mariners called, the albatross answered. In mist or cloud or mast or shroud, it perched for vespers 9. Whilst all the night through fog smoke white, glimmered the white moonshine. In mist or cloud, whether there was mist or there was cloud, on mast or shroud, whether it was the mast that the bird perched on or it was the sails. The shroud here, shroud is normally used to mean a cloth to cover a dead body. So the fact that after having called the albatross a Christian soul, he is saying shroud, it obviously doesn't say good things about his mental condition because they are not in very merry spirits, okay? Otherwise they wouldn't be thinking of shrouds. So it perched for vespers 9. Perched meaning it sat over there to take rest. For vespers 9, it's a fixed time in a day when the service at church takes place. Whilst all the night through fog smoke white, so the night is also white in color. Near the Antarctican area, the fog is there everywhere. And whatever light percolates, it kind of refracts and then you've got a total whiteness surrounding you. Glimmered the white moonshine. Moonshine is the moonbeams. God save thee, ancient mariner, from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why lookest thou so? With my crossbow I shot thou. So God save thee, ancient mariner. The wedding guest was looking at the ancient mariner while the ancient mariner was telling this story, and something must have changed in his face. Some expression must have come. For the wedding guest says that God save you from whatever fiends. A fiend is like a demon from hell. So whatever fiend plague you, whatever fiend is causing you suffering, I hope God saves you from them. But why are you looking like this? Why do you look so, horrified or horrible? And then the mariner answers, with my crossbow, and I'll show you a picture of a crossbow. This is an old crossbow. This is what the mariner used. So with my crossbow, I shot the albatross. Now, the fact that this would happen had been foreshadowed. Foreshadow means giving you an idea that something is going to happen. What had foreshadowed this? The word shroud had foreshadowed this. Shroud is normally used to cover a dead body, so it has got that association of death and evil with it. That is why the poet has chosen that specific word. The sun now rose upon the right, out of the sea came he, still hid in the mist and on the left went down into the sea. Now, exactly opposite to what was happening during the journey from Europe towards the equator, where they were traveling south. This is exactly opposite. Now they are traveling north, and we know that when we are facing north, the east lies to our right and the west lies to our left. So the sun will rise to our right and the sun will set to our west. The sun now rose upon the right. Out of the sea came he, still hid in mist. So they were not out of the mist. It's not the sun that is hidden in mist. They are covered with mist all around them. So still hid in mist, and on the left went down into the sea. And the good south wind still blew behind, but no sweet bird did follow, nor any day for food or play came to the mariners' hollow. So the south wind still kept on blowing, which kept helping the ship, but there was no bird. And when the mariners called, no creature answered. And I had done a hellish thing, and it would work and go. For all a word I had killed the bird that made the breeze to blow. Ah, wretch, said they, the bird to slay that made the breeze to blow. So, and I had done a hellish thing, a thing that will take me to hell, a sin. I had committed a sin, and it would work and go. This is alliteration. Woe means sadness. It would bring us sadness. For all a word, everybody agreed I had killed the bird that made the breeze to blow. Breeze to blow, alliteration. So everybody agreed that that albatross was a Christian soul. That albatross was a good omen. It had come like an angel from God, and it was responsible for the breeze blowing. And that same albatross he had killed. So it would bring them misery. Ah, wretch. They called him a miserable person, one who likes misery. Ah, wretch, said they, the bird to slay. Slay means kill, that made the breeze to blow. He is such a miserable person to have killed the bird that had made the breeze to blow. Now look over here, that made the breeze to blow has been repeated. So that is example of repetition. Nor dim nor red like God's own head, the glorious sun uprised. Then all a word I had killed the bird that brought the fog and mist. So not dim. Suddenly they see, because they're heading towards the equator again, right? Every day they are covering more ground. And suddenly they have come out of the mist. And the sun is now not dim. The sun is now not red. It is a golden yellow. The sun is red when you can't see it properly. Like God's own head. Now it is shining with so much splendor. It has been likened. So this is a simile. Like God's own head. The glorious sun rises up. Then all a word. Then everybody agreed. Look at how fickle-minded people are. One point in time they are saying the bird is a Christian soul, an angel, and has brought the wind. The other time they are saying that I had killed the bird that brought the fog and mist. As soon as you've killed the bird, the fog and mist have disappeared. 'Twas right, said they, such birds to slay. They said that it was right. He should have killed that bird that bring the fog and mist. Any bird that brings fog and mist with them are evil creatures and must be killed. The fair breeze blew, the white foam flew. This is a very, very popular line. The fair breeze blew, the white foam flew, the furrow followed free. This is an example of alliteration. They're calling the breeze was a strong breeze, and they're calling it fair breeze. It helps the ship. And it whipped the waves so that there was foam on the top, and that white foam flew in every direction. The furrow, as the ship made its way through the waves, through the waters, it left a trail. This trail is the furrow in the water. Normally, if I show you images of furrow, you will understand why in the waters you get something similar. So you see, every depression is a furrow. And if a ship travels at high speed on the seas, in the water you will get a similar furrow. This is the furrow that is being talked about. We were the first that ever burst into that silent sea. They were the first to ever go into. Now, can you tell me, with your knowledge of geography, what is the silent sea? Which portion of the sea is this? This is known as, there is a term for it. It's called the doldrums. Doldrums around the equator at the area you do not get breeze. So in the olden days, when ships used to depend on their sails, they would get stranded to the extent that people would die of thirst and hunger. So they have again come towards the equator, but they have entered the doldrums. Obviously, they are not moving anymore. Silent sea is alliteration. Down dropped the breeze, again alliteration. The sails dropped down. 'Twas sad as sad could be, and we did speak only to break the silence of the sea. So sails dropped down. Why? Because there was no breeze to push it along. And they talked to each other, but otherwise everything around them was silent. All in a hot and copper sky, the bloody sun at noon, right up above the mast did stand, no bigger than the moon. So what is he saying? He is saying that since they are near the equator, it is so hot, it reminds him of the hot and copper sky. So this is amazing imagery. Copper, imagine the color of copper. The sun would be that color near the equator. And copper, imagine heated copper, metal. That would also give you an idea of how uncomfortable they were. The bloody sun at noon, right up above the mast did stand. So because they're near the equator, it is standing right over their heads, no bigger than the moon. It was also highly concentrated, so that the heat was too much. Day after day, again repetition. We stuck, nor breath nor motion. So they couldn't move because nor breath, meaning no wind, nor motion. If there is no wind, there is no movement. As idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. Because there is no wind, the water's not moving, the ship's not moving, all of this could have been just a painting. Just like in a painting, nothing moves. So this is also simile. As idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. This coming two lines are also very, very famous. Water, water everywhere, and all the boats did shrink. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. This is irony. Irony means that whatever is said, it means exactly opposite. Water, water everywhere, all around them is water. But they are dying of thirst. Why? Because it is salty water. It's not fresh water. They can't drink it. That's the irony. All the boards did shrink. Boards are the boarders. People who are aboard the ship, the crew. They all shrank. There was no food. There was no water. They were shrinking. The very deep did rot, O Christ, that ever this should be. Yea, slimy things did crawl with legs upon the slimy sea. So he says that the very deep, the deep is the inside of the ocean. Seemed as if the entire inside of the ocean was rotting. Yea, slimy things did crawl with legs upon the slimy sea. Everywhere where there was slime. Now this particular slimy things, you don't know whether it is correct or wrong. Obviously the sea is slimy. Okay, slimy creatures live in it. All fish and all sea creatures are slimy. But then again, this could be him hallucinating. Because when you are that sick, you tend to hallucinate. And about in reel and rout, the death fires danced at night. The water like a witch's oils burned green and blue and white. So again, this could be hallucination, A, or about in reel and rout, like a dance they were performing. What was performing this dance? Well, if there is plant matter or decaying animal matter in the sea, and this is rotting, literally rotting, it would let out methane gas. Methane gas is self-combustible, and it often burns like fire in the air and moves around. Now, on land in Europe, this is called will-o'-the-wisp, but this is a very well-known fact. And these will-o'-the-wisps, they dance around like death fires. See his use of the word death. So, when people die, some religions, people are cremated, they are burnt. So those are death fires. The water like witches' oils. If you look at the water and if oil has been released there, then you will find the colors are all blue, green, white, different colors mixed up. So the water like witches' oils, but look at his use of the word witch, as if some evil spell is going on. Something is after them, cursing them. Burnt, green and blue and white. Again, he uses the word burnt. And some in dreams assured were of the spirit that plagued us so, 9 fathom deep he had followed us from the land of distance. So now those people who at first said that the bird was a Christian soul, bird had brought the south wind, then they had turned and said that no, the bird was evil and had brought the fog and the mist, and the sailor had done the right thing by killing the bird. And now they are saying that the bird has the spirit of that bird has followed them. You have done a wrong thing by killing the bird. The bird wants revenge. And it has followed them 9 fathoms. Fathom is the measure of depth. So 9 fathoms deep, he had followed us all the way from the land of mist and snow, from the south. And every tongue through utter drought was withered at the root. We could not speak no more than if we had been choked with soot. So every tongue, so all the sailors, they were thirsty. They had not had water for a very long time. So their tongues were all dry. Through utter drought, total lack of water, was withered, completely dried up at the root, at the very base. So they could not speak. They could not speak no more than if we had been choked with soot. If somebody, soot is the kali that gathers around things that are burning. It's very fine dust particle. And if somebody had shoved soot down your throat so that you couldn't breathe, that is how they felt. So again, very good imagery. Ah, well a day, what evil looks had I from old and young. Instead of the cross, the albatross about my neck was hung. So everybody on that deck, all the crew members, whether they were young people or older people, they all gave him evil looks. They were all angry with him. As punishment, what did they do? They took the albatross, the dead carcass, the carcass of the albatross, the dead body of the albatross, and hung it about his neck in place of the cross. Where the cross is supposed to hang, in place of the cross, they hung the albatross as punishment, that this is the result of your wrongdoing. You have killed a creature of God. So this poem at another level is about how we should respect God's creatures, all of them, all animals, which we normally don't.
If you want a video on a particular topic, let us know in the comment section below. And kindly visit our website raretutorial.com to know more. Thank you for watching the video. For more such educational content, please like, share and subscribe to our channel.